What's up, guys? It's your girl Chelsea, the wannabe Hecate. I have new hair. This is a wig. This is actually my first day wearing it. I had a lot of other stuff I had to get done today, but I wanted to wear my wig, and I desperately needed to get these videos filmed, but obviously my hair is gross since it's been under this wig all day. I was like, I'll just film in my wig. I hope it's not super distracting. I hope that it's not too much and you guys can still focus on what I have to say, because what I have to say is very important. I'm very excited about the video that I have for you guys today. It's basically talking about where the planets are transiting in your birth chart during Gemini season, and we're only focusing on the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, which are most of the personal planets. So basically what I'm going to be talking about, and this is based on your rising sign, I'm going to be explaining where the Sun and where Venus, all of those planets, what houses they're currently in your chart during Gemini season. And that will be able to tell you what areas of your life are going to have a lot more focus, a lot more energy and dynamism, whether you might be feeling more introverted or whether you might be putting yourself out there a lot more, having a lot of energy and confidence. I'll be able to explain that to you by using your rising sign. So just make sure you know your rising sign. And as always, the times are going to be in the caption so that you can skip to yours and just watch that section of the video and then go about your merry way for Gemini season. And then you can come back and tell me if I was right at the end of Gemini season. Now, I would like to iterate that what I'm about to say is very generalized. It is only based on where the planets are transiting in your chart right now. There are a lot of other factors that are going to affect your day-to-day life and your moods, like where the moon is, how the aspects are with the other planets in your chart, and how they're relating to these planets. So basically, if what I'm saying doesn't really resonate with you and it doesn't apply to you, just let it fly. Be like, that's not me, and just keep going. But please come back, because there could be something else that resonates with you. It just might not be this. Today we are starting with Pisces rising instead of Aries rising. And the reason for that is that my rising sign is Pisces. Enough gabbing, let's go. So if you have Pisces rising, you're going to have your Sun and your Venus transiting down here in your 4th house. Now the 4th house is the house of childhood, home, your parents, kind of like your origins. Having the Sun and Venus transiting here is going to mean that you might be tending to domestic issues over the next month. You could be feeling sentimental or nostalgic and having a lot of thoughts about your past. You may also feel a really strong priority to create a peaceful atmosphere for yourself at home, or to just build a stable foundation right now. You might feel like you're looking for a feeling of belonging, so you need to build that place within you so that you always have somewhere to go back to. Venus transiting here can also mean that you might be focusing on ways to earn money from home or in your home. Mars is over here in your 1st house, the house of self and behavior, how you put yourself out into the world. So having Mars, the planet of aggression, there is going to have you really asserting yourself and standing your ground over the next month. Having Mars transiting your 1st house can also mean that your love affairs will be ramped up a little bit. Things that you have to look out for with Mars transiting your 1st house is a short temper and maybe like being a little pushy. So if you find yourself doing those things over the next month, make sure you just dial it back, and remember, it's Mars acting up in your 1st house. Mercury is going to start over here in your 4th house, and then it's going to go into Cancer on the 29th and move over into your 5th house. Now, having Mercury, the planet of communication, in your 4th house is going to have you focused on family matters, like I said before when we talked about the Sun and Venus transiting here. You're also going to have a lot better concentration when Mercury is transiting here. When Mercury moves into your 5th house, the 5th house is going to be the house of like creative pleasures, what you do for fun. This is going to make your thinking more creative, and it's probably going to give you a need for stronger mental stimulation. You're going to feel a lot more spontaneous. Your sense of humor is going to be really strong. You may even get a little mischievous and prank some people if you feel like it. So if you have Aquarius rising, you're going to have the Sun and Venus transiting over here in your 5th house. The 5th house being the house of creative pleasures, what you do for fun and entertainment. Having these planets transiting here is going to have you feeling a lot more spontaneous and creative, maybe more willing to take risks, not just like physically in the outer world, but also like intellectually. You might be entertaining more broad ideas. The 5th house is the house of the inner child, so during the next month you might find yourself letting your inner child run more. The 5th house is a really good place for Venus to be in. It means that you're probably going to be making a good impression on others over the next few weeks. You may also feel a little more flirty than usual. Your powers of attraction are going to be very high. Mars transiting over here in your 2nd house, the house of values, possessions, is going to make Gemini season a very good time to make the most of what you have. You may find yourself worrying over like what you have and what you own because that's what the second house rules. So since you have Mars messing around in here, it's going to make you focus more on material possessions. So you have to be careful of impulse buying. Mercury, the planet of communication, is going to start over here in your 5th house, and then on the 29th, it's going to enter Cancer and move into your 6th house. So starting in the 5th house, which as I said before is the house of creative pleasures, this makes your thinking very creative and also increases your spontaneity, as I mentioned before. So once Mercury moves into your 6th house, which is the house of like health, routine, and work, you're going to see yourself focusing more on the details, maybe even learning some new skills. You're really going to be getting a handle on your daily affairs, maybe running more errands. It's going to be all about efficiency once Mercury goes into this 6th house for you. So if you have Capricorn rising, your Sun and Venus are going to be transiting over here in your 6th house during Gemini season. The 6th house is going to be the house of work, health, routine, day-to-day affairs, and things like that. So when you have the Sun and Venus transiting over here, it's a really good time for you to get organized. Gemini season is going to be the perfect time for you to attend to your health, attend to your well-being, get your routines in order, maybe make adjustments to them. You're probably going to find yourself getting rid of what doesn't work in your life and discovering things that do, and then keeping those and sticking to them. Having so many planets transiting in your house of health is just going to make your physical health and then the relationship between like your body and your mind, all of that's coming into focus for you, and that's what you're putting your energy into. Having Venus over here means that you'll be successful doing any tasks that involve cooperation. Now is the time to work with other people. It can also mean that romantic or social activities are going to revolve around your working environment during this time. Mars is transiting down here in your 3rd house, the house of communication. Mars being the planet of aggression, how we go about getting what we want, our goals. When Mars is down here, your energies get really scattered. You tend to have a lot of different things going on at once. You have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of plans, running around, probably doing errands a lot. One thing with Mars down here in your 3rd house, be careful of taking things too personally over the next few weeks. It can make you a little touchy. Mercury's going to start over here in your 6th house, and then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move up here into your 7th house. Now it's starting over here in the 6th house, which as I mentioned is the house of work and health. This means you may have been more focused on the details. You may have been learning new skills lately. Your mind is more focused on the little things. Once Mercury, the planet of communication, moves into your 7th house, which is going to be the house of your relationships, partnerships, and things like that, you're going to see an emphasis on communication with your loved ones. There's going to be a very strong desire for cooperation, and you may also notice yourself vibing more with like one-to-one hangouts as opposed to like big group activities. Something to be wary about with Mercury over here messing around in your 7th house is indecisiveness. You may have trouble making some decisions during Gemini season. If you have Sagittarius rising, you're going to have your Sun and Venus transiting up here in your 7th house. There is a glare, but they are here. Now your 7th house is the house of relationships, partnerships, how you relate to others. Having Sun and Venus transiting here may make you feel a greater need to be with someone else, to have partnership, to just have someone to bounce ideas off of. It doesn't necessarily have to be like romantic partnership. Gemini season is probably just going to be a time where you find that you just need companionship. You're not really going solo right now. Because you feel that way, you're going to have a higher ability to cooperate with other people, to harmonize. You're going to feel more inclined to make peace rather than fight. Mars is transiting down here in your 4th house, which is going to be the house of domestic things, your family, your parents, your childhood. Having the dynamic planet of Mars down here in your 4th house is going to cause you to work to secure a stronger foundation for yourself. You may find that you have a lot more energy for domestic projects and activities that you may have going on right now around the house. Now this is the house of your childhood and therefore your past, so with Mars transiting down here, you just have to be careful about getting worked up about some issues from your past during Gemini season. Mercury is going to start up here in your 7th house, and then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move up here into your 8th house. So starting in the 7th house, the house of partnerships, gives you a desire to cooperate and communicate, like I mentioned before. It may also mean that you've recently been giving advice or making peace with people. Once Mercury moves into your 8th house, the house of regeneration, death, transformation, unseen things, you're going to feel a lot more intuitive. You might find yourself reading between the lines a lot more, wanting to get beneath the surface of things rather than just skim over them. Mercury transiting up here is going to give you the ability to approach secretive matters or personal things that you're dealing with a lot of rationality and logic. So that makes Gemini season a good time for you to have conversations that may cause waves or tension for you. Not saying that that's something that will definitely happen during Gemini season, but if it does come up and it's something that you need to have a conversation about, now is the time to do it. So if you have Scorpio rising, your Sun and Venus will be transiting up here in your your 8th house during Gemini season. The 8th house is going to be the house of regeneration, rebirth, unseen things, transformation. It's kind of a enigmatic and mystical house. When you have your Sun and Venus transiting up here, it's going to make you take a step back, maybe uncover some personal strengths. You're definitely withdrawing and going inward during this time. Personal matters may be coming to the forefront for you right now, and rather than skimming over things, you want to get to the heart of the matter and really go beneath the surface. You may feel very desiring of change during Gemini season because you've got these planets up here, and having Venus up here is going to make any intimate relationships you have going on right now intensify a lot. Venus in the 8th house is also going to make you more inclined to smooth things over rather than like argue or fight about it. Mars is transiting down here in your 5th house, the house of creative pleasures, so you're going to have a lot more energy to express yourself creatively since Mars is the planet of like aggression and dynamic like energy, how we go after our goals and what we want. Mars in 5 can also indicate that your love life may step up a notch during Gemini season. I'm so bad at winking. With Mars in 5, you just have to be careful. Like, you have a lot of energy, but you can't burn the candle at both ends. Don't burn yourself out. Mercury is going to start up here in your 8th house, but then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move into your 9th house. Now, starting with it in the 8th house means that recently you've probably been more intuitive, maybe reading in between the lines a lot, seeing like hidden things that you maybe didn't see before or notice before. Once it moves into your 9th house, the house of higher learning, philosophy, travel, and education. This is going to have you thinking about the big picture rather than like small details because the 9th house is the house of like expansion. So you're seeing things from a very wide viewpoint. Since it's the house of travel and Mercury is the planet of communication, this could also mean that you could have communications with someone very far away from you. Mercury in 9th house can also sometimes cause like forgetfulness just of little things like appointments and stuff like that. So make sure you stay on top of that during Gemini season. Now, if you have Libra rising, your Sun and Venus will be transiting up here in your 9th house. This is going to be the house of higher education, travel, philosophy, expanding your mind and your world. So having the Sun and Venus transiting here is going to maybe make you feel a lot more adventurous during this time. You're maybe feeling like broadening your horizons. This is a good time for you to recognize that need for you to just escape your daily life sometimes, just the mundane and the routine. You need to feed your self-expression. So this is a great time to schedule some kind of vacation or getaway. Just make sure you're not daydreaming so much about that getaway that you lose track of the everyday affairs you have going on. Venus, especially transiting your 9th house, is going to give you an increased popularity during Gemini season, and it's also going to increase just the taste you have for like exotic and foreign things. Mars is going to be transiting down here in your 6th house, the house of work, health, day-to-day affairs and routine and things like that. Having Mars transiting here is going to give you more energy for work. This could also mean that you have a larger workload during Gemini season. And since Mars is like a planet of aggression, it can mean that it's harder for you to work with others during this time. If you do feel frustrated or restless, just try to find ways to channel your excess energy constructively. Mercury is going to start up here in your 9th house, and then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move over here into your 10th house. Now, Mercury starting in your 9th house is probably having you recently think about the big picture rather more than the details. You've just been seeing things from a very wide view. Once Mercury moves into your 10th house, this is going to be the house of like your career and your public image, your standing in the world. Mercury being the planet of communication and mental energy, this means that your thoughts are going to turn to your career and business matters. Because Mercury is the planet of communication and this is going to be your house of career, this is a great time to use your words to influence your authority figures or ask them for something that you've been wanting. Your words have a lot of power right now. Mercury in your 10th house can also mean that you might be asked for advice during Gemini season. If you have Virgo rising, Sun and Venus are going to be transiting up here in your 10th house during Gemini season. Your 10th house is going to be the house of your career and your public image. Having Sun and Venus transiting here is going to draw your focus to your reputation. Gemini season is going to be a time for you where you really want to see results for your efforts. You may also be in contact with authority figures a lot, maybe like higher ups at your job since this is the house of like career. Having Venus transiting in the 10th house is going to mean that you are coming across well at work, very charming. So this is a really good time for negotiations associated with your business. So like if you've been wanting to ask your higher ups for something, now is a good time for you to do that. Mars is transiting over here in your 7th house, the house of relationships, partnerships, how you relate to others. Mars is a very dynamic planet, and having it in your house of relationships means that you will see a lot of conflict and resolution. It will be a very spicy time in your love life probably. Mars transiting the 7th is going to mean that you deal with issues as they come up. You're not going to want to sweep anything under the rug. You're just going to want to bam, done, let's move on, it's solved. Because this is the house of partnership, it could also mean that you may need someone's help to get work done during this time of Gemini season. Mercury is going to start in your 10th house, but then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move over here into your 11th house. So since Mercury is the planet of like communication and mental energy, it being over here in your 10th house means that recently you've been thinking about your career and your business matters, as I mentioned before. It could also mean that recently you've been speaking with more authority and recognizing the power of your words, using that to your advantage. So once Mercury moves over here into your 11th house, the house of like friendships, group involvement, community activities, and things like that, you could see yourself better understanding others, better vibing with them, maybe wanting to spend more time with your friends or just your circle in general. It's a time where you can have really good conversation and you just want to share things with others. When Mercury goes into the 11th house, you're going to be thinking about your happiness as well as like your long-term goals. So if you have Leo rising, your Sun and Venus are going to be transiting in your 11th house during Gemini season. The 11th house is the house of friendship, community, group activities. So having Sun and Venus transiting here means that you'll probably feeling very lighthearted and social during Gemini season. You're going to have a very strong sense of community. Sharing your interests is what's going to make you happy during this time. You're definitely more peace-loving, more willing to compromise and negotiate rather than like argue. Venus being up here means that your relationships become more fun and you may find yourself being more attracted to like unconventional things. Mars is transiting over here in your 8th house. The 8th house being the house of like regeneration, transformation, death, rebirth. Having Mars over here means that Gemini season is going to be a time where you need to recognize that your need for others and their support is very important. And that's reinforced by how many planets you have over here in the 11th house, which is your house of community and like your friends, your loved ones. Mars in your 8th is also going to make you a lot more aware of subtle things that you may not have noticed before. You're going to feel more intuitive, like you're able to see and read between the lines. This also indicates that you may hear about something during Gemini season that touches you very deeply. Mercury is going to start over here in your 11th house, and then once it goes into Cancer on May 29th, it's going to move over here into your 12th house. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication and mental energy, so it's starting over here in your 11th house means that recently your mind has probably been on like your happiness, your long-term goals, sharing things with others, because like I said, it's the house of community. Once it moves into your 12th house, this is going to be the house of karma, self-undoing, and things like that. It's a very mystical and enigmatic house. But once Mercury goes in there, your mind is going to turn to more private matters and your own personal issues. You're going to feel yourself withdrawing and going inward. You may feel like you just need solitude to get all your thoughts in order once Mercury goes into your 12th house. And if you are feeling confused or lost, it's a good time to look to your past for answers. Now, if you have Cancer rising, your Sun and Venus will be transiting over here in your 12th house during Gemini season. The 12th house is going to be the house of like self-undoing, karma. It's a very like mystical and enigmatic house. It also rules over like secrets. Gemini season is going to be a time of reflection for you, of like recharging your batteries. You feel a lot more introspective during this time, and you're going to be applying a lot of your energy to like your personal affairs. Gemini season is going to be a very good time for you to consider your attachments and whether or not they're weighing you down or helping you out. Venus is just kind of hibernating over here since this is like the house of secrets. It's like the privacy sector in the birth chart. If there is anything going on in the love life this month, it's affection expressed behind closed doors because like I said, it's just a very secretive house. Mars is sitting up here in your 9th house, which is going to be the house of higher education, philosophy, travel, expanding your world and your mindset. Mars is a very dynamic planet about achieving your goals and going after what you want. So once it goes into this 9th house, you may feel some restlessness going into Gemini season. During Gemini season, you may be expanding your activities, taking on a new subject, learning a new skill of some sort. Because like I said, it's the house of higher education. So you may be furthering your education in a subject. What to watch out for when Mars is up here transiting in the 9th house is don't get too easily fired up if someone else has a different opinion from you, because this planet is so aggressive and this is the house of your viewpoint and your mindset. So when you have it clash with other people's, you can get easily fired up having this fiery planet in that house. Mercury is going to start over here in your 12th house, and then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move into your 1st house. Mercury is the planet of thought, mental energy. Having it over here in your 12th house means that recently you've probably been thinking about your past a lot, maybe needing solitude to get all of your thoughts together. Your mind may have felt a little chaotic. Once Mercury moves into your 1st house, the 1st house is going to be the house of self-expression, how you put yourself out there into the world. So you've been thinking a lot with Mercury in your 12th house. And once it moves into the first house, you're going to feel the need to speak up on what you've been thinking about. You're going to feel a stronger need to express yourself more and use your words. After Mercury moves into this house on the 29th, it's definitely going to be a time of you communicating your needs and your interests. If you have Gemini rising, your Sun and Venus will be transiting over here in your first house during Gemini season. The first house is going to be the house of self-expression, how you put yourself out there in the world, your behavior and your mannerisms. The first house is also going to rule over your physical appearance. When the Sun gets into this house, it's a time of putting the past behind you, restarting a new cycle. You might have a lot of increased energy and confidence going into Gemini season. Having these planets in your house and self makes Gemini season a good time for you to get in touch with your true identity and your sense of purpose. It's really not the best time for teamwork since, like I said, this is the house of self and the spotlight is just going to be on you right now. Venus over here may cause some romantic matters to come to the front for you during Gemini season. And since it rules the physical appearance, like I said, with these planets over here, you're also going to be paying attention to your physical appearance more. Mars is transiting up here in your 10th house, the house of career, public image, your standing in the world. And Mars is going to be the dynamic planet of goals, how we go after them, how we get what we want. So when it's in your house of public image, you may feel an increased need to be noticed. You may be promoting yourself a lot during Gemini season, and you may also have, since Mars is such an aggressive planet, there is a possibility for conflicts with people in authority, which could be people at your job, it could be your parents, anybody in a higher up position over you. Mercury is going to start in your first house, and then once it goes into Cancer on the 29th of May, it's going to move over here into your second house. Mercury is the planet of thought, mental energy, communication. Having it over here in your first house means that recently you've probably been very direct, you've been communicating well, since this is the planet of how we speak and how we communicate our needs. Having it in your house of self is going to make you more inclined to speak up. Mercury being in your first house can also have a lot of mental energy going on for you, so you may have felt recently like you just can't turn all of that off. Once Mercury goes into your second house is going to be the house of like values, material, and also, you know, just what you value, and then your possessions, so what you have and own. This means that your mind is going to become a lot more practical and rational. It's going to be a lot more focused on what you own, what you have. And it's also going to make your thoughts turn to what you truly value. You may be evaluating that more and weighing some things in your life, deciding how much they are worth to you and whether you want to keep them or get rid of them. If you have Taurus rising, Sun and Venus are going to be transiting down here in your second house during Gemini season. The second house is going to be the house of money, material values, possession, what you have, and things like that. So with the Sun and Venus transiting here, Gemini season is going to be a time for you of what you have and what you don't coming into focus. Your sense of security is going to be strengthened. Security and stability is going to be something you have a strong desire for. With these planets all being in the house of money, you have to be very careful of extravagant spending. If you feel the need to do something like that right now, you just need to know that like you have a desire to pamper yourself, and that's okay, but there are also inexpensive ways for you to go about doing that so that you don't put any strain on yourself unnecessarily. If you have the means, by all means, treat yourself. This is a very stable house for Venus to be in. Your love matters are going to be stable during Gemini season. Familiarity is what's important, so when all these planets are over here in the second house, this isn't a really big time of like taking risks for you. It's just more of a time of sticking with what you know. Mars is transiting up here in your 11th house, the house of friendship, community, group activities, and things like that. This makes it a great time for those group activities and cooperative efforts to happen. This is a good time for you to work with others. Mars transiting here means that the role you play for others is going to come into focus during Gemini season. You may even find yourself doing more things for like your friends and your loved ones. Mercury starts over here in your second house, and then once it goes into Cancer on May 29th, it's going to move over here into your third house. Now, Mercury being the planet of like mental energy, communication, and thoughts, it being in your second house means that recently you've probably been focused on like your finances and your personal values. You may have been fretting over them. You may have just been really practical and like frugal lately and been like, no, I need to save this money. Once Mercury moves over here into your third house, this is going to be the house of like communication, but also short trips and your siblings. So Mercury is going to get a little more distracted and you're going to have a lot more going on. Once it goes into this house, you may find yourself running more errands. You'll be doing a lot of multitasking and making connections, but it'll be successful multitasking. Last but most certainly not least, if you have Aries rising, your Sun and Venus are going to be transiting in your third house during Gemini season. The third house being the house of communication, short trips, your siblings. So Gemini season is going to be a time of busyness and movement for you. You're going to be strengthening your connections, maybe with your siblings or cousins since they fall under this house. You'll be busy with errands. You're going to be communicating a lot. Venus being here is going to make you very companionable and may even see you mediating some kind of disagreement or smoothing things over between two people that you know. Mars is over here in your 12th house. The 12th house being the house of like self-undoing, secrets, karma, and things like that. It's a very mystical and enigmatic house. Mars is going to be the planet of goals, aggression, how we go after what we want. So when Mars is over here transiting this 12th house, there's going to be a lot of researching and reflecting on your goals during Gemini season. You're going to turn your energy inward and be focusing on private matters more. The 12th house also rules your dreams, and having the aggressive planet of Mars here can either mean that you might have yourself having trouble dreaming or sleeping, or you might have a lot of just dreams all of a sudden. And if you do and you're like, why am I dreaming so much all of a sudden, just know that Mars is over here wilding out in your 12th house. Mercury is going to start over here in your 3rd house, but once it goes into Cancer on May 29th, it's going to move into your 4th house. Mercury is the planet of communication, mental energy, thoughts. So with Mercury being in your 3rd house, recently you might have had a lot of different interests. You might have been having a lot of different things going on, like project-wise. When Mercury's in the 3rd, your energy's kind of scattered and you're just picking up a lot of energy from your environment and the people in it. Once Mercury moves into your 4th house, you're going to see your concentration increase a lot. It's very scattered energy in the 3rd, and then in the 4th, that's when all of it comes together and it's more ordered. Since Mercury is the planet of mental energy, and the 4th house is going to be the house of like your home, your childhood, your family, and things like that, you could see your mind turning to domestic matters, anything involving your family, your past, your childhood, that could come to play later on once Mercury goes into your 4th house. Mercury moving into your 4th house and Mars still being in your 12th house also makes me think that Gemini season is going to be a good time for you to maybe work on your own and work alone. It's probably not the best time for teamwork right now. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about your transits, and I hope that Gemini season is wonderful for you. I really hope that I explained what I'm doing in this video well enough. If I didn't, or you guys ever have like any questions about what I said, or I didn't explain something the right way, please feel free to comment and ask me. I also, if you want to email me, you can email me. We can talk about tarot and astrology stuff. I'm always down to make new friends. Look out for some other videos. I have so many planned. I try to post at least twice a week, and I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I really appreciate you guys watching me do this and supporting me and being into it. It means a lot to me, and like I said, if you ever have any more questions, please feel free to comment. I do $10 birth chart interpretations. I have done tarot work for people who have emailed me. I am always looking for ways to learn and grow in my work, and the only way to do that is meet new people and do hands-on stuff. So that's what I'm always looking to do. The companion video for this one is going to be my Gemini season oracle cards video, so be on the lookout for that. I pulled some oracle cards for the signs, and they can be read for your sun, moon, and rising sign. Those are going to be the oracles for all of Gemini season, so about a month. I'm still trying to do tarot readings every week for my Instagram. I've been trying to post a celebrity birth chart episode like once a week. Even when I'm not posting, I promise I am always working toward the next post. I actually have another video to film right after I get done filming this video. Salanghe! I will see you guys soon. Love you, bye!